Hello everybody, and recently I've been having a little bit of a tinker around with Outlast. Scary. So can I please get an intro now? So, Outlast. Scary. So it turns out that only recently, believe it or not, I actually signed on to PlayStation Plus, and if you guys have a PS3, a PS Vita, or a PS4, you should definitely sign up as well. Why? Because you get free games every month. It rocks. And it just so happened that in February 2014, if you were signed on to PlayStation Plus, you would have received this game as a free download for your PS4. Free. Yes, I know, it's been on Steam for fucking donkeys, and admittedly, that's where I played this game and completed it first with a couple of my friends. But, you know what? Why not talk about it now, with its release on PS4? Outlast is an interesting specimen. It's an exceptionally well-made horror game by an indie dev company which is compiled of extremely talented people. And for this small compilation of a game company, this game does, especially for the horror genre, so many things right. But then, here's the interesting part, it also does as well a fair amount of slightly questionable things, and things that are far too basic to have any long-lasting appeal. But anyway, in case you didn't know, Outlast is the story about a journalist named Miles Upshur, who's looking for his next big breaking story. And one day he gets a slightly interesting tip-off from some random source telling him that there are some slightly controversial experiments being undertaken in Mount Massive Insane Asylum. Mount Massive. Fucking really? And so he breaks into the place with his trusty video camera to film everything, explore, take notes, and grab himself the story of a lifetime. What he ends up uncovering is pretty special, to say the least. And every second that you're in this insane asylum, you're gonna regret ever even setting foot in there from the beginning. Outlast, in my opinion, is one of those instances where the entire hype and build-up for this game, and everybody talking about it, and everyone saying how fucking terrifying it was completely overdone for its own good. But to save myself from 2 years worth of hate mail, I feel as though an explanation is in order. Although firstly, before I go into anything at all, I'll be reviewing the PS4 version of the game, and to be honest, it's fucking great. Yes, I know, the screen over here is showing the PC version of the game, and I very much apologise for that. I have no way of recording my PS4 at this current time, but trust me, the PS4 version is just perfectly optimised and identical, if not my slight preference to the PC version. And I'm sure I'm alone with that front, and it's just my opinion at the end of the day, but either way, on the PS4 format, this small game project looks like blockbuster quality, and it's incredibly impressive because of that. The level of detail on the character models, the outdoor grounds, the insane asylum itself, and also exploring and looking at all of these different things in different lenses of your, camera is just remarkable. It looks fantastic, especially with the awesome adaptive lighting and all of the motion effects in the chase sequences. For small game company standards, in terms of looks, it's one of the best that I've personally ever seen in my life. Trust me, it's one of those things where it does not look like an early attempt of a game from a company. But that's not the only thing to like about this game, because the sound design as well is top-notch. The subtle yet shrilling flourishes in the strings and all of the heart-pounding, deathly percussion are used in the perfect moments. The timing of all of these moments is just absolutely perfect, and it makes for some great atmosphere, great build-up, and it actually benefits the very well-placed and well-crafted jump scares. Yes, well-crafted jump scares, believe it or not. And this can be said for the entire sound design as a whole, with the placement of every sound, the distances, and even every single little dripping bit of water and every creaky floorboard. The level of detail here is something to admire. Detail is this game's biggest strong point, and it makes for some horrifically strong and dank and dirty atmosphere. And talking about the atmosphere, that brings me on to the gameplay. Unfortunately, it's nothing too special, but fucking hell, it's insanely fun. No pun intended. Like Amnesia or SCP Containment Breach, etc., combat is a no. Running away and hiding is a yes. You must be very evasive and very strategic in getting around all the enemies, because they can be sometimes a huge threat, especially when they actually start looking through all the hiding spots in the rooms that you ran into. The game's objectives mostly contain exploring and documenting with your camera, turning on valves or mains power in order to bypass some hideously run-down part of the building, or picking up keys in order to get to an even darker and danker and deeper part of the insane asylum, or just running the fuck away. Escaping, escaping, escaping. This is what this game focuses on, and it does it really, really well. Where most of these objectives may not be too original or interesting for the horror genre, it really does work with the whole game as a whole due to the quickness of enemies and the designs of the levels that can be often they can make you very lost and helpless. And that can be especially jolly when you're in a part of the asylum that has no power, leading on to the darkness aspect of this game. It's so pitch black sometimes, it's almost like being blind. So how do we get around this? With the night vision option on your camera. This, apart from all the different hiding spots, is your main salvation from getting away from these lunatic psychopaths. And luckily enough for you, every battery runs out in mere minutes, you can only carry up to 10 at a point, and they are not easy to find in most parts of the game. And this is where the game gets really fun. Do you risk your life and waste precious battery life in order to explore even more dangerous parts of the asylum to find batteries in rooms that might not even be there? Are you brave enough to tackle any danger straight and head on without hiding in a locker and keeping the night vision camera on in order to peek out and see if there was anyone there? Can you actually navigate the sometimes maze-like floors swiftly and quickly enough not to waste the battery and get completely lost in the darkness? Yes, it's almost identical to some mechanics in other games like, for example, Amnesia with the lantern oil, but honest to God, the batteries for this thing run out very quickly. And not to mention as well, there are tons of more areas of this game which leave you more or less visionless. There is so much darkness in this game, you will find it very difficult not to use the night vision all the time. And when you couple that in with all of the faster and smarter enemies roaming all of the halls looking for you, it forces you to keep on your toes at all times, which benefits the tenseness of this game magnificently. Even when you're running away, you have a look back button, which is very, very cool, and it adds just that little bit more to the blockbuster handheld camcorder Cloverfield-esque appeal to the whole thing. And every single goal or insane character that you meet and greet throughout this entire experience come and go so fucking quickly that it keeps the whole experience, no matter how many times you replay it as well, very fresh, very fun, very on the edge of your seat, and it constantly throws shit at you to keep on your toes. On a side note as well, I should say that the writing with Miles' personal journal as he's witnessing all of these horrific events unfold before him, brilliant. They have so much superb wit, and it brings tons of dark humour to the situation. The writing is just completely ingenious in some parts. Maybe not with the the scripting of the characters, but the writing of his journal, definitely a plus. But where there are many damn great things about this game, also there are things that are a little bit off. Firstly, the story and the motivation behind your actions. Okay, when you actually start the game, before you experience anything or find out anything, discover anything that's going on, Miles is the kind of character that will do absolutely anything to get his beloved story. At first, that's kind of understandable, but then it gets fucking ridiculous. I know it's a game, I know that this concept has been overdone too many times in a way that makes this game self-aware, and I know that it's kind of silly, but still, this is a guy that will do anything at all. And he isn't going into this asylum to shut down anything, or kill a murderer, or save somebody, or protect the entire universe from detonation or anything. No! He's going in to just get a fucking news story. And the stuff that happens to him, spoiler alert, he gets his fingers cut off, doesn't scare him away. This character style never changes throughout the entire game, and you sometimes question everything that you do. The impact of all of your actions have no meaning or point or sense of logic behind them in any point, and it does make you feel kind of stupid. Miles! Man! Just go home! But character motivation is a completely different kettle of fish entirely when it comes to the plot. It's fucking dumb. But that's not to say that the story isn't bad, because it actually, for the first 3/4 of it, it's great. There's loads of intrigue, plenty of mystery, lunatic murderers, disturbing happenings, and even splashes of paranormal stuff, and even, religious cults. But then, the ending happens. Fuck me, it sucks. Plot-wise, I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but if you've played this game, or you're thinking about playing it, basically, the story itself means nothing when it gets to the ending. Just suffice to say, the final stretch of the game is boring. The final boss, if you can call it that, isn't a shock, isn't a surprise, and is boring, and isn't even that remotely scary, and the ending is complete bullshit, and all it does is serve to say, yeah, nothing that you did fixed anything, solved anything, or helped anyone. Congrats, you dick. And overall, it just leaves you very unfulfilled and very confused. But another confusing thing about me for this game were the character designs themselves. Now, don't get me wrong, they do look fantastic. I'm not going to slag them off for that at all. And the asylum itself, it's fantastic in every single regard. But this game, it tries way too hard to shock its players. Way too hard. The enemy designs are actually so revolting and so unrealistic that it's actually hilarious. No joke. All of the insane people in the asylum that was experimented on by one of the many doctors is just... they look ridiculous, I'm sorry. And it just sucks out all of the gritty and grotesque atmosphere that this game is very good at presenting to you. It's almost like...
oh, look at his scary face. It was cut off, you know. Because the doctor didn't perform his ops properly. Because he's insane. And we're in an asylum. Scary, innit?
Overall, in my opinion, the enemy designs are just too uninteresting and uninspired to be scary. I know that fear itself is completely subjective, so no one can have any opinions to that matter. If you're scared of these guys, fair play to you, because they're kind of creepy. I'll give them that, and I'll give you that if you're scared of them. But for me, they were just far too overdone and ridiculous to be scary for me, and I didn't really find them that scary. And it's a horror game, so that's a bit of a problem. And not to mention, whenever these guys are not in your face, the game is always trying to throw like a huge rotting pile of corpses at you, or gallons of blood in separate rooms up to your ankles, or quote-unquote disturbing dialogue from all of the inmates in the asylum, and stereotypical insane delusional rantings that you can hear from every end of the halls, and from side characters, and oh dear. For me, I felt like it was trying far too hard to be controversial and frightening. And when it comes to actual scares, the bits that got to me were all the subtleties, you know, all of the enemies searching for you, or exploring all of the desolated rooms and having a guy just in the corner shaking about, or not even moving at all and just maybe moving his head. You know, all the little things, the subtle music scores, all of those things. And not to mention as well, yes, the subtlety things got me, but those jump scares, I'm gonna call them jump scares because I can't think what else to call them, are exceptionally well crafted. And when it comes to video game horror, jump scares are insanely hard to do, especially to keep them consistently scary, and you got me plenty of times. So Red Barrels, I actually do applaud you on that front. You really have a great knack of creating this brilliant atmosphere, sucking your players in, and then smacking them in the face with it. And yes, they did make me jump, and they did make me kind of shiver up inside a bit, and they did make me tense, and they did make me want to run the fuck away. But for people to be calling this one of the scariest games ever made, I don't think so. And why do I think that? Well, because the threat, as in the things that are trying to kill you, are not a threat. Why are they not a threat? Because they're very formulaic and they're pretty much on train tracks. It's very sad but very true. Whenever you're spotted or need to run away or need to evade an enemy or anything like that, the same tactic gets you through all of the chases. I mean, yeah, it can be very stressful and very tense. I felt this, I did feel this. But then once you realize every single enemy does exactly the same thing, which is following every single footstep that you make, they don't corner you or anything, they follow every single footstep you make, so if you were to come into a room where there's a table, all you gotta do is run into the room, get behind the table, wait for them to come in, see which way they're coming around the table, and run around them. You can do that with any enemy. And that doesn't really appeal to me because it doesn't make it scary. These guys are too predictable. And if you've been watching me online recently, I've actually been streaming this game on my Twitch channel. Links in the description. And I think all of the people that have seen me, if you can comment, I mean, how many times have I been scared so far? Twice, I think, I'm not really sure. But I'm near the end of the game already. Once I worked out this one simple formula from all of the enemies, which are the things that are trying to scare you, it just ruins the fear factor for me. The game is insane amounts of fun. No pun intended again. It's really fucking fun, and I would replay it tons. But the fear factor, it kind of gets dampened by this formula. And because of this direct following enemy formula, it does make the game, for me, very relaxing because I know I can get out of any situation I want to if I just calm down and run around a table. Yeah, it sounds really silly, doesn't it? But anyway, after having a tinker around with Outlast, I can definitely say it's a low-end commendable. And when I say low-end commendable, I mean kind of, I don't know, 7 out of 10. I might push it to 8 if I'm in a good mood, or if I replay it and get scared a little bit more. Maybe it was just my playthrough. Maybe other people have had much scarier playthroughs. But for me, I have to settle on a kind of 7 out of 10, I think. This is a really good horror game made by incredibly talented guys that have all of the promises. That, you know, they have the canvases, the paintbrushes, and all of the tools to create the best horror game we could ever lay our eyes on. But personally, I just reckon they need a tiny little bit more refining on their actual painting. Sure, the game looks, sounds, and plays amazingly, and it can be quite scary in some places, and for a small game company like you guys, you're doing an amazing job. But personally, I reckon with a tiny little bit more practice, a little bit of a going over with some of these formulas, and a little bit of tweaking, you guys could make a horror masterpiece. You have every tool and every skill here needed to make it, but I'm just not sure you've got it quite there yet. But keep on trucking, Red Barrels, because I am right behind you with everything that you do, trust me. Farewell everybody, and until next time, take care.